won. It's over. You stopped the invasion and closed the portal. But it's come at a price. Argent, Vega, this entire operation. You see, I've watched you work, come to understand your motivation. You think the only way is to kill them all, leave nothing behind. And you may be right, but we can't just shut it all down. Without Argent energy, it will be worse. I don't expect you to agree. But with this, we can continue our work. I am not the villain in this story. I do what I do because there is no choice.
Rerouting tether coordinates complete.
Our time is up. I can't kill you, but I won't have you standing in our way.
Oh, nice. Why couldn't I do that?
Until we see each other again.
All right. Well, that was Doom, obviously, as you might have been able to ascertain from the title screen. You know you think of that sound every time you hear that. Oh, so what do we get now? Credits, I presume? Let's move the cursor here. Ha! Nice. All right. So, interesting ending there. That last boss fight was pretty intense. Sorry I didn't talk through most of it. I was focusing pretty hard on what I was doing and what she was doing. So I was trying to learn that one last phase where she like electrocutes the ground but then puts the spikes on the podiums. That one time we got super low on health. And that almost boned us. Damn. The BFG in the mouth didn't do as much damage as you would thought of it would have, but oh well. Anyway, so this is typically where I talk about the game, give my overall at a cuff thoughts, etc. So yeah, this game was great, without question. Unless the rest of the games for the rest of this year are all like perfect 10s, which is not going to happen. This is without a doubt one of my games of the year, easily. This game was fantastic. Could not have asked for too much more out of this from the single player perspective, to be honest. It took a lot of the old elements, took like no health regen, but you had armor and health pickups, and you could like look around stages to find additional health and ammo and whatnot. You could get weapons early if you looked around early, you know, more thoroughly, things like that. And had, you know, hidden secrets and whatnot. And it was pretty linear. It wasn't as open as a lot of the old school games, which some people will probably, you know, don't dislike that it's not as open as some of those were. I'm at odds with that. On one hand, I like open world, well, not open world, but more open maps for games generally. On the other hand, my memory is so bad, it makes it very difficult for me, especially because I want to find everything, to remember where I've been and where to go back to research and all that. So a bit more linear is fine with me. I get it, but I can definitely understand why some people would want bigger maps. If my memory was better, I would want bigger maps to explore and check out and all that. But anyway, it also had like new elements, like more current elements that made it more fun, like the challenges, like the map challenges, or the mission challenges rather. The rune system, finding the runes. Well, first you had to beat the challenge for the runes, or the relics, or runes, whatever. And then you could equip them and upgrade them, which was fun to do. You also had the weapon mastery, that you had to do certain things to unlock the weapon mastery. I like all that. I like all that stuff. It gives me something extra to do. It keeps things, not that the gameplay would be monotonous for me anyway, but it could, for other people, could keep it from being monotonous, because you're trying to, say I need to line up 3 demons to kill with the siege version of the Gauss cannon. So you're trying to do things that you might not have normally done just to unlock those things. And sometimes when you do that, it kind of opens your eyes to some new that's pretty awesome. It opens your eyes to some new strategies you might try But yeah, it was a really good mix of both. I love the relic system, being able to swap those in and out. I like the weapon upgrade system where you could pick a mod and upgrade that mod. See, like, so I guess he had to have been one of those sentinels. So oh nice, the classic old school cover art, obviously 2016ized. But the sorry I'm so much, just I'm trying to wrap my brain around everything that I'm trying to say before the credits end. But yeah, I really love that the relic system. Like, again, being able to kind of customize how you want to play. Now, granted, I feel like maybe a little bit too many of those revolved around doing glory kills. Like, it felt like, what, half of the relics or runes all revolved around doing glory kills, which I didn't mind too much because all the way to the end, I enjoyed getting the kills, the glory kills. But it could have been a little bit more diversified. Like something like every time you pick a health pickup, you get a damage bonus increase for 5 seconds. So that way you're like, okay, you know, I memorized where the health pickups are, so I'm not going to pick one up until I need it. Now I'm going to go grab it and get that health or the damage boost. And maybe it even stacks, right? So I feel like they could have branched out a little bit in that area for the relics. The gun mods, for the most part, it feels like for a lot of the mods, it was kind of like, this is way better than that. For example, the stun from the gauze cannon, or not the gauze cannon, but the plasma gun, felt way better than the heat thing. Now, I didn't use the heat thing very much, but stunning enemies, way more useful in my opinion. The gauze cannon, both modes actually were pretty good, so that's not really a great example. Maybe the minigun, you know, the turret or whatever, it didn't really seem to do enough damage to really justify the mobility penalty that you pay when you're using it. Things like that. But again, this is pretty minor complaints. And I feel like on this difficulty, I played on Ultraviolence, obviously, which is the third highest difficulty. The next difficulty up, I think everything does a lot more damage. From what I've heard, you die very quickly. So you just get hit a couple times and you're dead. So very room for mistakes. You got to be very aware of your environment at all times to avoid taking hits. And then, of course, there's Ultra Nightmare, which there's no saves. If you die, you start from all the way from the beginning, which I'm obviously never going to do. But I feel like this difficulty could have been upped a little bit, not a ton, near the end, especially once you've really got those weapon mods upgraded and masteries, and you've got a good rune set up, and you've got, you know, higher health, higher armor, those things. I feel like the game does start to get a little bit on the easier side. They definitely try to ramp it up on the next to the last mission. And I wish they would have had more like crazy throw everything from the Hell's Kitchens at you, including the Hell's Kitchen sink. Could have been good, but I messed it up. I wish they had done it a little bit earlier, because even by the time they did it, you've got the BFG. And I mean, even if you've only got the 3 shots of it, that thing can pretty much clear any section of the game. So, but even without it, I kind of kept forgetting about it for a while there. But even without it, things like the gauze cannon in siege mode, it just devastates enemies. And the fact that you can charge it while you're in the air was really useful, because a lot of times I would double jump to make myself harder to hit because I'm like moving up and over. I'd start the charge, so by the time I hit the ground, I don't have very long to charge and then blast. And that thing would one shot kill quite a few of the demons. And so, like, even stuff that's supposed to be crazy hard, like the Barons of Hell, I think took only 2 charge shots. And that was very easy to do with the stun. Just stun with plasma, switch over, siege, shoot him in the head. And if you need to, stun him again, switch over, and he's pretty much, he's gone. So I feel like it could have used a little bit tougher difficulty higher up, maybe slightly less damage on things like siege on the gauze. But again, we're talking very minor tweaks. It's not like I didn't die at all. I definitely died a few times. But yeah, like I said, difficulty maybe a little bit harder, but overall was very satisfying. Another nice thing, the enemy variety was good. and I didn't feel like any of them were like overly cheap. They didn't do really cheap crap. Like kind of Dark Souls has that problem. Dark Souls 3 in particular has problems with like, it has good enemy variety, but now some of the enemies get kind of cheap. Like, oh, this enemy, just by being in line of sight of this enemy, your maximum health drops. Like just cheesy shit like that. There wasn't any of that here. Everything had interesting aspects. I did hate the pinkies. The pinkies were annoying as shit. But, you know, it gave you something to keep in mind when you're trying to decide, okay, which enemies do I kill first? Because these are most dangerous. Like the summoners, obviously you want to kill those first, or else you'll be overrunning with imps. Because I think all they summon is imps. So you want to get rid of those fast. And pinkies were like pretty much next on my list. Just because, you know, it seems like you can ignore them until all of a sudden they come flying around a corner and hit you when they turn on a dime. So the enemy variety was good. And again, they felt like they each had their kind of their own little challenge. You know, some of the stuff, some of the enemies later on became just fodder, like imps, and the one step up from imp. They don't throw anything, but they're not like a Baron from hell, but they kind of look like them, just a smaller version. They didn't have the horns. Like those guys, you know, were pretty generic, but you know, again, there's a fairly good variety, and even the flying skulls, which I've forgotten the name of, starts with an S. Early on, those were completely irrelevant. Later on, if they spawn during a wave, they could be a real problem because they go so fast and they explode on you and do a significant amount of damage. But yeah, it felt very good. Enemy variety was good. Music was phenomenal. Like they did a really good job of picking music that while you're in the fight, it was really pumping and it was like, yeah, like it just felt badass. It felt badass to be fighting all these demons while the music is blaring and blood is flying all over the place. I like the glory kills as well. I like anything like that, honestly. And I might be in the minority, but stuff like that never gets old to me. Like I did glory kills from the beginning of the game to the very end, and I enjoyed them all the way through. I mean, it did get, I guess, a little tiresome to see the same ones, but it was a pretty decent mix so that depending on where you were and where you were aiming, you would get different animations. Though I feel like some of the tougher enemies maybe didn't have as many. I feel like some of the weaker ones had more. Or maybe I just didn't find them on the tougher enemies. Who knows? But yeah, it's all the guns felt pretty good. The earlier guns do kind of get completely outclassed later on, except for their alt fires. Like the regular shotgun is pretty much completely outclassed by the super shotgun, except for the grenade, for the alt fire grenade of the shotgun, which is still pretty decent later on. Especially against enemies like the cacodemons, if you were out of everything else that you needed. But, you know, the pistol was not useful hardly ever. I basically used it for the weak guys so I not to waste ammo. But, yeah, but overall, the enemy, even the old weapons still did kind of keep their usefulness just to switch in for the alt fire. Again, the plasma rifle, I always switched over to that, just the alt fire, and then switch over to something else. But the weapons felt good, good kick, good sounds. All of that, they felt very impactful, shall we say. Level design was pretty good. Very early on for like the first half of the game, they were really good about almost no matter how far you were into the level, you could backtrack and maybe look for stuff that you had missed. Later on, it feels like they completely abandoned that idea. It was almost like somebody else designed those levels, or they just said, you know what? We're tired of trying to design this so that you can get all the way back. So we're just going to give it up. Because like it seemed like there was a certain point where every single level after a certain point had a in level point where you couldn't go back. You had to just keep going forward. So if you missed something, you just had to play the level again. That kind of sucks. But again, I don't consider that a major problem because I do understand it can be difficult to try to design a good level that just feels good and looks good and all that, while also always being able to go back. Like, you know, the times that you jump off of the side of a big cliff and jump into the middle of demons. Like, you know, how else are you going to get back up? I mean, granted, you could do something like put an elevator in there. I think that would be kind of a nice, kind of cheesy way to let you get back to where you were. Is, oh, this elevator that was broken until you shut up and turned it on, and now you can go back up. There's probably some things he could have done, so I definitely think it was possible to still have the level design been as overall good as it was, while still allowing you to go back. Because sometimes there was just blatant times that I feel like they blocked you off without being unnecessarily doing so. For example, blocking a door off that you came through and you just couldn't go back through. That kind of stuff I feel was unnecessary and kind of shitty, but it didn't happen that blatantly too often. What else to talk about as the credits wind down? Hopefully this isn't like Ubisoft freaking credits where it's like 3 hours. But yeah, definitely a fantastic game. If I give it a number score between 1 and 10, 10 obviously being pretty much near perfect, 1 being pretty much unplayable, and 5 being average. I consider 5 like, I guess average is the wrong word. 5 is equal amounts good and equal amounts bad. It's like, well, you know, I'm enjoying parts of this, but I'm also not enjoying it. Kind of an equal measure. Not necessarily an average game, because that's very, very difficult to decide, especially now with there being, 100 new indie games on the market every day. Anyway, score-wise, honestly, I probably would at least give this game an 8.5. It really was that good. It just felt good the whole way. The only times I really got frustrated was, again, not being able to backtrack. And even then, that wasn't a big, huge deal, because you could just replay the level and it did not mess your progress up, which thank you very much for that. Being able to go back and replay levels to get the hidden items and then just pick up where you were in the campaign was great. For somebody like me who enjoys finding the hidden items, it's awesome. And it would also be nice for those who like maybe pick a high difficulty and are like, oh man, it's kicking my ass. They could go back and get the hidden items and get more weapon points, get more Praetor points, and get some more upgrades and then tackle it again. Because I definitely know if I had played on Nightmare difficulty, it would have been a lot harder. I would almost certainly still be playing it now, trying to get through, because I did end up taking a lot of damage. But my damage and my health and armor was high enough, and I was set up so I could do glory kills pretty frequently to get more health. So it didn't really end up being a big issue. So it allowed me to get a little sloppy. I feel like with Nightmare, I would have been getting killed much more often. But yeah, at least an 8.5 for me, possibly even a 9, because like I said, this is really the type of FPS that I love, where it's just brutal, it's fast action, there's no regenerating health, there's no, oh, I took damage, I'll run in circles around this pillar until I get back to full health or anything like that. I hate that. It's a shitty mechanic. And I'm glad to see, I want to see more games like this, and Shadow Warrior is another great one. If you're looking for more games like this, Shadow Warrior, the reboot, is fantastic. Duke Nukem 3D, yes, Duke Nukem 3D, the old ones, those are still fun, very fun to play even today. I feel like they've aged well. Graphic-wise, not so much, obviously. Gameplay-wise, I feel like they're still very fun to play, because I actually played Duke Nukem 3D about 2 years ago, and it was still fun as hell. But as far as a price that I would suggest, I always have like a price type review where I say, oh, look, how much do I think this game is worth? I mean, at bare minimum, $40 minimum. I paid like 30 something because it went on sale very quickly after Unto the Evil. So I guess maybe that's the full title of the 2016 version. Interesting. But yeah, 40 minimum. But honestly, I feel like this is worth the full 60, especially if you're the type like me who's going to try to find the hidden items, play on a harder difficulty, or not. I mean, the difficulty doesn't even matter, right? It's more like I feel like as long as you play on a skill or difficulty level where you're not just walking through all of your thing and you're always ending all these fights with like some shields left and max health, I think you're at the right difficulty, right? I don't think higher difficulty is necessarily good. I think it's based on your skill level. So again, I think Nightmare would have been too much for me, and I feel like the ultra violence was just about right. Maybe a touch too easy, just barely. But yeah, like as long as you play it at that, because I feel like this game, if you played it, like if I had played this on one difficulty level lower, I feel like it would have been a little bit boring, right? Because I could just easily just wade in with the most powerful guns and blow everything away with a couple of shots. But yeah, I feel like this is a full $60 worth it easily. And there's multiplayer, which I don't really care about the multiplayer, but if you do, it's there. And there have been some free updates, like they added camera mode, which is pretty cool. I've heard they added some new content as well. That I don't know much about. But I heard they did here very recently. I'll have to check into that. Because yeah, if there's any DLC out, there's a pretty damn good chance I will buy it. I'll watch for the reviews though, because sometimes like a really good game will come out with like really shitty DLC. So we'll see, but there's a very high chance I would play it because I loved the hell out of this game. No pun intended. Damn it. I just realized that after I said it. I actually did not mean to do that. But good, looks like good timing. Looks like the credits are wrapping up. Is there anything post-credits? No. Okay. All right. Woof. Well, thank you guys for watching, especially those who stuck in through the entire Let's Play. Make sure you leave comments so we know what you thought of this playthrough. And follow me on Twitter and be looking for some new playthroughs coming to the channel soon. See you around.